April 1st is around the corner. And if people don't have money to pay rent, there will be a destructive shockwave rippling through our economy, worse, potentially worse, than we saw with the initial shutdown of the service and retail industries. People can't pay rent. Rental management companies, lenders, insurance companies, maintenance, malls, they can't employ their staff without that cash. So we're going to see a major rippling effect, damaging the economy even worse. So we need to get the stimulus package passed now. But Ocasio-Cortez is outraged because the stimulus package doesn't include cash payments to illegal immigrants. Why should it? I don't know. Now, it is a bit more complicated than this because you could technically argue that AOC is also demanding that foreign investors get access to our stimulus package. I'm not exaggerating. I think AOC was trying to come out in a way demanding cash payments for illegal immigrants, but she couldn't say that, right? Because if she went on Twitter and said, I demand illegal immigrants get access to our money, people would revolt. So she said, people with ITIN numbers. These are tax numbers for the IRS for people who are typically not citizens. But the two primary groups that are involved in receiving ITIN numbers are illegal immigrants and foreign investors. Just say it, dude. You want people who are not citizens to get access to our stimulus package when it's already gonna massively increase the debt per family. Now, because of this, we're actually seeing a Republican, Thomas Massie, demanding a recorded vote, or for now. So you got he might want a recorded vote. We'll see what happens. But all of these House lawmakers are now rushing back to D.C. because we got to get this bill passed. You know what, man? I'm sure the bill's got bad stuff in it. I am sure it does. There's people complaining about a provision, page 781, that guarantees $25 million for congressional salaries and expenses. Now, some members of the House have pushed back, saying this is to expand the technological abilities for teleconferencing so that people can work from home or remotely. Whatever. Some people have said it's about them getting salary raises. It doesn't directly say raise, but anyway, the point is, I'm sure the bill's not perfect, man. I can tell you this. We're between a rock and a hard place. Nancy Pelosi's bill is insane, and she's probably going to try and push that forward in the next session with the next stimulus because this one's not going to be enough. Now we can thank the Democrats for blocking it as long as we have. And I think Thomas Massie is an all right guy. I don't know a whole lot about him, but is now really the time? No. If I threw shade at AOC for wanting to do the same thing, I do not think it's appropriate for this guy to be doing the same thing either, because April 1st is coming. This is going to be, the dominoes are falling down. The support columns for our economy are crumbling. Now is not the time. It's important to talk about what's in it. It's important to call it out. Maybe you can do something to change some of these provisions or pull them back later. I don't know, man. But I can tell you this. AOC wants to give non-citizens access to our stimulus package, which is already dangerous. $2 trillion jammed into the economy is not going to be a good thing for anyone. Already we're seeing stories that goods at supermarkets like milk, bread, and eggs skyrocketing. 30% increases due to the insane demand. What do you think is going to happen when people can't pay their rent? Oh, it's going to be amazing when people aren't working and then we dump money into the economy. Remember which country did that? Venezuela? Now, I can't tell you all the nitty gritty details of how, them printing money like morons resulted in the destruction of their economy, because there are a lot of things involved in the destruction of their economy. It'll be a little different here because we're giving people cash and we're still trying to rely on some free market functions. So it may work out better. But I think it's possible we'll see massive inflation. So would it be appropriate to increase the $2 trillion to $2.5 trillion or more or whatever because illegal immigrants aren't getting access to our money? No, that makes no sense. It's bad enough we're doing $2 trillion. But again, April 1st is coming. So like I said, AOC is trying to weasel her way around this one, in my opinion. Check this out. The Daily Mail says, Ocasio-Cortez has lashed out Republicans because the $2 trillion stimulus bill does not include direct payments to taxpayers without a social security number, including people living in the U.S. illegally. To clarify, $1,200 checks are only going to some with social security numbers, not immigrants with tax IDs. ITINs, the freshman Democrat from New York, wrote in a tweet on Thursday. I hate how they do this. They conflate immigrant and illegal immigrant. There's a difference. Some people waited in line, took a test, got approved, did everything right, and have come here and joined our community with love and respect. Others were seeking fast economic gain or access to resources and came through illegally. I have sympathy to those who are desperate and want to improve their lives. You betcha. But there are people who did everything they could to come here legally, and it's not easy. And we have this for a reason, especially right now. When we're dealing with a global pandemic, we need to get a hold on what's happening with our borders. We cannot have 1 million plus people pouring in, especially, listen, man, you're going to get me really angry. Our hospitals are overloading. We cannot just keep pulling people into a sinking ship. Could you imagine you're on a boat, you spring a leak, and you got these people panicking saying, we need to start bailing water. And you say, hey, why don't we let all those people on the boat too? We're going to sink faster, man. How about we secure our ship before we start letting other people on? Now, while we're sinking, once we get rid of a bunch of that water, we do let people in. But for the time being, not only do we have an economic crisis, we have a healthcare crisis. And you're talking about giving cash to people, to immigrants. Now, you're talking about illegal immigrants, dude. I'm going to show you it's like you go to Wikipedia. They break it down for you. She said, thanks to GOP, these checks will be cut off the backs of tax-paying immigrants who get nothing. Many are essential workers who pay more taxes than Amazon, she continued. That's just insane. The argument about Amazon not paying taxes is about like the corporate tax rate. And it's very, very, nearsighted. Amazon does pay taxes. They pay like employment taxes and property taxes and a bunch of other taxes. But people are typically talking about at the end of the year with their profits, how much do they pay in taxes, and there are tax incentives, and it's general tax structure that allows them to get past this. So depending on which person you talk to, they mean two different things. So no, when a company like Amazon pays billions upon billions in employee taxes and property taxes and other kinds of taxes, it's not the same as corporate tax on profits. But they're still paying taxes. Let's be real. They say the Internal Revenue Service issues ITINs to taxpayers who are ineligible for a Social Security number, mostly, though not exclusively, because they are present in the country illegally. U.S. citizens, legal permanent residents, and those with an immigrant work visa are all eligible for Social Security numbers for tax purposes. However, unauthorized immigrants can and do file taxes, leaving immigrant advocates outraged that they will not receive cash payments under the stimulus bill. Man, this is nuts. This is what you have created, the Democrats, the far left ones who want open borders. I remember 10 years ago when they were saying we got to get a hold on, our borders and get security. That was Bernie Sanders. I remember last year when Bernie Sanders says we can't open the borders. We got too many poor people. Now you have created your serf class. Congratulations, you lunatic authoritarians. We cannot afford the stimulus package now. It's insane. It's like $6 trillion. It's two from the direct relief and from Congress in this bill. And then we have the Fed dumping in $4 trillion in lending power and credit. It is going to drive up inflation. It is not good to just rapidly print money. We are in serious trouble right now. More unemployment claims now than ever before. 3.3 million. In like 1 week, and it's going to go up again, especially like I pointed out April 1st. And you want us to cut checks for people who aren't citizens. They shouldn't be here in the first place. They can come. I'm totally on board with all immigration. And I've said it before. Everyone in the world, you are welcome to come to America legally. You go through a process. There's a line. We do this for a reason, to protect them, to protect us. I have personally experienced what happens to countries that do not get a hold on proper immigration. They create ghettos and suffering and poverty. I'm not exaggerating. When countries just let people come in and do whatever they want, they form segmented enclaves because that's what people do. And we need to make sure that when people come in, we can protect them and everyone else. Not because any of these people are evil. I think most of these people just want a better life, and I totally respect it. America is awesome. But we want to make sure they're not wandering through 90 miles of open desert and dying face down in a ditch. We have to have some controls on this. Plus, we have to make sure our economy can sustain this kind of growth. So to the people who are here, they're paying taxes. Look, I get it. Many of them do. That's why they have ITINs in the first place. I can respect that. But you know what? There's limits. There's a hard limit, and there are no easy answers. But I certainly do not think it makes sense that when we're struggling right now, when we're trying to get a hold on our country amid how many American citizens right now, tax-paying citizens who through no fault of their own have just lost their jobs. And you're saying, yeah, I know about them, but what about the people who came here illegally? No, dude. It's not so much about the idea of America first. It's about taking care of America properly. And it's about, I guess you can call it a kind of economic triage. Someone who was born here, paid their taxes their whole life, is a part of our community, versus somebody who showed up within the past few years or whatever, violated our laws, violates our laws to this day. And the only reason they're paying taxes because the IRS wants that money and they won't share the information with Homeland Security. So there's a segment there. And the idea is like, well, it's better they're paying. There's limits. It's not sustainable. Let's read more. They say, quote, we must put meaningful resources into the pockets of those hardest hit by the coronavirus. Immigrant families must be included. You're talking about illegal immigrants and foreign investors. This is the funniest part of the whole thing, because they can't say illegal immigrant because they know people would revolt. You know, it's really funny. Right now, New York's hospitals are being overrun. We are nearing our capacity. There's a funny meme about, you know, it's like, why can't the U.S. What is it? We have hundreds of thousands of people in the hospital for the flu every year. How are we all of a sudden overrun? Because it's happening all at once in single locations, and it's happening fast. Just because from January 1st, December 31st, you have hundreds of thousands of people spread it across the entire country, right? That doesn't mean we can handle it all now. People said the flu is worse. All right. From October 1st to February 1st, the CDC's low-end estimate is 12,000 deaths from the flu in the entirety of the U.S. That is 4 deaths per hour in the entirety of the U.S. In New York, the other day they had 100. That is more than 4 deaths per hour in one state. Well, let's get back to the other issue. I don't want to rant on that. Any stimulus package passed that doesn't support immigrants, she means illegal immigrants, isn't doing its job as a stimulus package. It's unclear whether Ocasio Cortez or any of her Democrat colleagues plan to obstruct passage of the bill if their demands are not met. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi plans to hold a vote on Friday, but will be forced to use a procedural loophole because the chamber is not in session and members are currently scattered in their home districts. Well, Thomas Massie, the Republican, apparently wants a recorded vote, so everyone's rushing back full speed to get to D.C. to vote on this. Look, I don't know if now's the time for this. Let's get the bill passed. But hey, this is Congress's job, so if they got to fly back, as long as we're not delaying this, let's just get it through, man. And no, I do not think illegal immigrants should get access to this stuff. They say Pelosi plans to hold a voice vote, asking for yays and nays from anyone present in this chamber and recording whichever she determines is louder. That basically means she's going to pass it. However, the voice vote could be derailed if any member objects and there isn't a quorum. Across the nation, millions who have lost their jobs due to the pandemic and mandatory business shutdowns will be watching the House vote as they wait for a lifeline. And they want to make sure that while you're out of work, people who came to this country illegally can get that sweet, juicy stimulus package just like you. Because it's not about you. You've done everything right. You're a member of this country, you know, a citizen of this country. And then someone showed up a year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and now they should get that money too. And you should pay for it. Because make no mistake, a stimulus package is us borrowing money from ourselves in the future. It will dramatically increase the national debt. It's going to devalue currency. It's going to result in hyperinflation. It could. I'm not an economist. Well, I'd like to show you what an ITIN is. Let me see if I can get this. Wikipedia is not going to let me. Check this out. They say an individual taxpayer identification number is a United States tax processing number issued by the Internal Revenue Service. It is a 9-digit number beginning with the number 9 and has a range. Yeah, we get it. They say regardless of immigration status, both resident and non-resident aliens may have federal tax return and payment responsibilities under the IRS. Individuals must have a filing requirement and file a valid federal income tax to receive an ITIN unless they meet an exception. An ITIN application cannot be filed electronically. The application must be attached to a valid federal income tax return. Let me see if I can find the appropriate. Here we go. 1.4 million people used ITINs when filing tax returns. Federal tax law generally prohibits the IRS from sharing data with other government agencies, including Homeland Security, assuring unauthorized aliens that the tax information will be confidential and generally will not be used to initiate removal procedures. ITINs are also used by real estate brokers to facilitate mortgages for unauthorized aliens. In addition to use by unauthorized aliens, ITINs are used by foreign investors in the United States, real estate. Such investors need ITINs to file federal and state returns to report rental income. Do those people deserve access to our stimulus package? I'm going to go on a limb here. No, You're a foreign real estate investor. You know how many Chinese foreign real estate investors we have? We have a lot. You think they deserve access? We get it. You want illegal immigrants to get access to the stimulus package off the backs of the American people. Now they're saying this stimulus package is coming off the backs of working immigrants. Lies. Illegal immigrants are different from regular, from authorized immigrants. I was going to say regular, but authorized. I'm trying to be inoffensive to the best of my abilities. So here you can see, what is an ITIN really for? And for the most part, it is illegal immigrants. Why? Well, as we just learned, if you are a permanent resident, a work visa holder, or a citizen, you are eligible for a social security number. You won't get an ITIN. So who's getting it? Illegal immigrants and real estate investors, foreign real estate investors. How does that make sense? Yeah, AOC is trying to weasel her way around the fact, and they call them immigrants, and now they're including, I'll be a little bit hyperbolic, Chinese land investors in getting access to our stimulus package. They say, across the nation, we read that one. For those with a social security number, everyone earning up to $75,000 in adjusted gross income, the income on your tax return, will receive a $1,200 payment under the stimulus bill if it passes in the House. The payment steadily declines for those who make more and phases out for those who earn more than $99,000. For married couples, both adults receive $1,200, with the phase out starting at $150,000 of income and falling to zero for couples who earn $198,000. And so you don't have to do anything. Apparently, if you filed taxes in your 2018 taxes in 2019, apparently they have all your information already. If you did direct deposit for your refund, they got it already. And according to the New York Times, you'll just wake up one day and see money in your bank. Go and spend that. Now, there's going to be long-term repercussions. We are borrowing from ourselves. This means that this money is being injected into the economy and there's no labor or value behind it. So it will kickstart things. But typically, when people are trading, there's a production of value. Money is not value. Money is a trade medium. And what the government is hoping is that because everything's stagnating, we got to pay rent on the first. I don't think we're going to be able to do it. Too little, too late. I think we're in dire straits. So I guess we'll see what happens. The bill's huge cash infusion for hospitals expecting a flood of COVID-19 patients totals an estimated $130 billion. Another $45 billion would fund additional relief through FEMA by local response efforts and community services. One of the most contentious issues concerned $500 billion for guaranteed subsidized loans to larger industries, which Ocasio Cortez called corporate welfare. Yeah, because companies have employees too. What Trump plus the Senate GOP have done is hold the hospitals, working people, and the vulnerable hostage so they can get in $500 billion that will be leveraged into $4 trillion in corporate welfare, she tweeted. Without the Wall Street giveaway, GOP refuses to fund hospitals and employment. It's inhumane. Look, man, I'm not a big fan of giving big cash bailouts to major corporations, but we're not talking about a bailout for the bank industry that's, screwed themselves over, or to an extent the auto industry, which was falling through their own problems. We're talking about a virus that shocked the economy. Man, I'll tell you what, April 1st is going to be the next wave, the next big stone dropped in that lake. Whoosh, and that wave's going to go out and you're going to feel it. It's going to come, a week or two later, we're going to see how bad it really gets. We're going to see way more layoffs. Unemployment claims, they're going to spike to 10 million? I don't know. So the idea that the Democrats think these corporations should just go under is absurd to me. Even one of the ideas they've said is that, but if we give the stimulus package to the people will buy products. Trickle down doesn't work. Okay, I agree. Except no one's flying on airlines right now or going to movie theaters. Boeing does need to sustain itself through this economic crisis as well. I'm not a big fan of Boeing. I'm not a big fan of any of these big, contractors or whatever. But what do? Do we let tens of thousands, 100,000 plus people lose their jobs because an industry collapsed? Or do we say everyone gets access? And that includes some theaters and colleges too. There are criticisms from conservatives saying, why are these performing arts centers getting all this money? Yeah, I don't like that either. And perhaps the amount of money they're getting is too much. But listen, man, the alternatives are worse. I think if we don't get things going again, people don't realize how close we are to the precipice. We are inching towards the edge of that cliff, and we are starting to look down. I don't know if this is going to be enough or fast enough. Many people have said too little, too late. So how about we get our priorities straight, AOC, and we stop worrying about people who are not citizens, because then what? People rush in and just try and file something to get access to our funds. We cannot give access to our hospitals that are already beleaguered. It's just not going to work. Resources are finite. I can't imagine what's happening in New York City, but I'll tell you what. If it turns out that many non-citizens are getting, mostly illegal immigrants, are getting access to our crippled healthcare system, you will see Americans revolt. You absolutely will. It's so easy to say all of these empty platitudes and virtue signal about immigration up until it's your family that needs to be in the hospital. And let me remind all of you of a dangerous and terrifying reality. First, I'll say my heart goes out to anybody who's sick. I want everyone to survive. Triage exists for a reason. Even I, an American citizen, will likely not get access to a hospital for a broken arm or something right now because they're in desperate need for beds for COVID patients. That's how we're prioritizing things. But recently we learned that many hospitals are preparing to announce or contemplating a universal do not resuscitate order, regardless of the wishes of the patient or the family. So I want you to consider something. The hospitals are talking about this because they're under strain. They are under stress. They don't have enough beds. They don't have enough ventilators. Now, there's arguments about whether they are or they aren't. Not every hospital is on the verge of collapse, but some are overloading. There will come a point when one of these hospitals says, we cannot resuscitate your mother, your father, your brother, your sister. Why? Because there's too many people. And with what AOC and others have proposed, giving illegal immigrants and Bernie Sanders illegal immigrants access to our healthcare system. And again, I sympathize. We don't want anyone to die. But we need to set a hard line. You know why? There will come a time where you're standing in a hospital, or potentially, and this is where it gets grim, and it'll be your mom, and she's in a bed with a ventilator, and you are anxious, you are shaking, and all of a sudden, her breathing stops. And the doctor comes up to you, and you start screaming, please help her, and he says, we can't. Universal DNR. Your mother will not get any aid. We're letting her go. And you're going to want to know why. Why? It's because the hospital's overloaded. And if they have their way, Bernie Sanders, AOC, Joe Biden, whoever else, giving access to our limited healthcare system to non-citizens, that will increase the likelihood people in America experience things like this. How insane and nightmarish would it be? Now, look, I don't want the illegal immigrants, the people who are, the non-citizens to die. I really, really don't. But there's a hard reality to life, and it's that medical supplies are limited. You want to call it a human right, that's fine, but there's only so many doctors as we're learning now. If we set a hard limit today, we cannot give healthcare to everyone on the planet, like Bernie Sanders said only a few months ago. Then we let these people know you must seek treatment elsewhere or go back to your home country where they probably have some kind of universal healthcare. But healthcare in this country is really good. So let me remind you, as these hospitals are contemplating this, I don't think these doctors would turn away anybody who is on the verge of death or who is very, very sick from coronavirus, and that includes illegal immigrants. But then I want, AOC is going to have to answer to the people when they're wondering why the doctor said we're not going to try to save this patient. It's just too great a risk. We're under too much stress. And a contributing factor is that the beds are full and some of them are non-citizens. And if the strain was lower, perhaps they could have saved your family. Now, I want to stress, I'm not saying that the reason they're doing universal do not resuscitate is specifically because of overload or because of illegal immigrants or anything like that. I'm just saying that universal DNRs, or the potential that they don't save your family member, could be because they're treating illegal immigrants. You will see Americans revolt if they bring their mom, their grandma, their wife to the hospital, and the doctor says, we have no beds, and it turns out non-citizens are using them. People are going to freak out. I'm not saying this to disparage anybody. I'm just saying this is what we have to consider. There is a certain, when you're in a crisis situation, you have to ration what little you have. And so all these people who said that healthcare was a human right, you now learn the reality. No, it isn't. You could show up to a hospital and they say, there are no beds. Where's your right to healthcare now? The reality is we need more hospitals. We need more beds. We need emergency supplies. But there is a finite number of doctors and nurses and beds. So stop playing games. The world isn't candy cane and rainbows. It's not Elysium where the rich people are just keeping you out of the hospitals for no reason. It's because resources are finite, and unfortunately, healthcare is not a human right. But if there is access, if there are resources available, they'll try to save your life. But eventually, the hospitals will get overloaded like now. And now people are going to learn the hard way. It is not. You'll show up and they'll say, we can't help you. And that's the scary future. I'll see you on the next segment coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out.